Hello, and welcome back to Become One Living. My name is Dan. This is my wife, Jo.
Hi, everyone.
We're back.
Welcome back. Today, I would like to talk about the Yoga Sutras. What do you think?
I think it's it's embarking on a journey.
What a great leeway into the Yoga Sutras, because they offer you a journey.
It's not a story to read. It's a whole expedition.
It is a guidebook on how to practice yoga that was written 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Now, why aren't I giving you an exact date or time? The Hindu philosophy varies, meaning all different scholars will tell you different timelines because there is no exact times in literature that they can find. So they vary 1,000 years here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why if you are a yoga teacher or you study these practices, if you read different books, different commentaries, they will tell you a different timeline.
Yeah.
Nobody is right or wrong.
Right, and it's something you have to touch upon, but the history of it, historical context of it is just, it's just almost insignificant compared to the material and the depth that happens once you start to unpack them. And beginning with the first one, you could probably spend a good amount of your lifetime just unpacking the first one.
We are going to spend a whole episode unpacking the first one.
Yeah.
But right now, I want to go back a little to clarify exactly what it is. What are they? So they're a guidebook on how to attain yoga and practice yoga. It's a guidebook. In this book, there's 194 to 196 aphorisms. Why the difference between a few numbers? It depends on whose commentary you're reading. Again, it doesn't matter the amount, but I like to share this for yoga teachers or anyone interested. If you go and say, well, you said 195 and this book says 196. Just so you know, it varies. It really depends on who is writing it. And there's in particularly one Yoga Sutra that was added in the third book that makes it have more than the other books.
We're not sure how many thousands of years ago that one was added in.
Exactly. Or who added it. And let's talk about that. These were supposedly written by a mythical person,
Patanjali.
However, nobody knows for sure if he existed.
Or if it was a group of scholars at the time that came together to put this all in place.
Yes. So some scholars think it was a group of people that came together to write this. Others say it was students, because sutra means thread, to thread together, like a sutra, like a suture.
Suture, right.
And you're threading together these aphorisms. And some people say aphorisms are short sentences. But here's the difference. An aphorism is a concise statement of a scientific principle. So it's a concise
statement of a scientific principle.
Exactly. Yoga is a science.
Mm-hmm.
Yoga is a science. I'm going to say that a few more times. Yoga is a science. Yoga is a science. Yoga is a science. Yoga is a science.
It's a science of a way of living.
Well, if we look at the word yoga, it's a science of yoga. Yoga is union or coming together of two different things. So it's a science of bringing the mind and the body together for self-leadership and self-realization.
I like that.
So here is a whole guidebook with aphorisms, concise statements. They can be short and clever. and whys that are scientific principles that, now here's the difference between just a statement and an aphorism. An aphorism has to be interpreted. It's a short saying that requires interpretation.
It's almost as if the statement is compelling the reader inward to do work.
Yes. Yeah, it's a calling. You read it and people think reading it is enough, but it is a guidebook with practices in it, and the practices have to be done, have to be used in order to create a transformation. It cannot just be read. It's just words. So to go back, the Yoga Sutras are so powerful because it is a specific guide on how to attain self-realization. And self-realization is you realize your fullest potential, your own potential in this lifetime.
By way of the rituals, by way of the practices, by way of actually putting into place what's shared in here.
The Yoga Sutras also, aphorisms are said to be handed down through traditions. So the aphorisms that we are being blessed and honored to read have been passed down through tradition, orally, because the Hindu philosophy is an oral tradition. So then here's my question. Why do people change it? I'm so curious. I've been in the yoga world, my friends, 30 years. 30 years. I was in my teens. Yes, most of my life. I am 48. I joke in yoga class and tell people I'm 80 and that the practices have really helped me with longevity. It sometimes goes over well, but when you hear it so many times, nobody thinks it's funny. But I do.
I do too.
So I started in my teens because I had this feeling that there had to be a better way of living.
That's since I've gotten to know you, the most potent piece of your story to me is that the drive with what motivated you in your pursuits was health challenges, addiction, and so it wasn't like just something that you did because it was fun or something you did on the weekend. You were honestly in earnest reading these things, taking them to heart for change, for you to live better, feel better.
The second training I did was purely because of the Yoga Sutras. I remember knocking on Jody, was her name, Crystal. I remember knocking on Jody's door saying, you have to let me into this training or I'm going to die.
She locked you out?
No, this was before.
Oh, okay.
Before that, when I asked if I could come in because I had missed a weekend. And the reason I was so drawn to this training was because the first training I did was purely physical. When we hear the word yoga, especially in the West, right away, thoughts go off. Asana, handstand, back bend, wheel.
Put your hands behind your feet behind your head and pretzel and all that kind of funny stuff.
And I learned the asana. And I had come from a body background. I was a personal trainer. I studied physical education and health and exercise phys. I needed more. So I did a training specifically to learn the Yoga Sutras and the philosophy because I wanted a new way of life. So this book offers you all a way of living. Stop changing it. Stop altering it. It is potent, and the theories behind it have been proven by data, and even more now because of the study of neuroscience. Mm-hmm. Now, how was it proven years ago? Because you have these rishis and these yogis walking around that have touched or met self-realization and enlightenment and consciousness.
Yeah, they didn't need the science back then. I think there's a great, from the Buddhist influence, that these teachings were handed off from one warm hand to the other or to another. And that, the proof, the scientific proof was literally walking.
Yeah. Years ago, and for me, I would look at the teacher and say, I want what they have. Not I want to be them. You hear the difference, friends? I wouldn't look at someone and say, oh, I want to be them. And I wouldn't idolize the person. I would have, and still feel now for my teachers, great respect for the practices, rituals, sacrifice, and discipline they had to gain the mastery that they had. And that's why I only trained with people of great mastery, because I wanted that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to learn how to lead my life from consciousness, from love, and not from fight or flight, which is what most of us live in right now due to high levels of stress in the world and due to the state of the world. Most of us live in this busyness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's so rich, Joe. When you say a word like ritual, it's just a reminder to everyone listening is that it's not something that you read and say, oh, I get it, I know it in my head, and then you go to work and you get on with life. They're actually things that if you do plug them in, if you do practice, if you do ritual, they yield a better life. So, wherever everyone's rushing around and squeezing it in, skidding into yoga and getting their practice on. But if you do slow down and take the time to investigate, explore, discover, practice, it works.
And the suggestions on what to practice are in the book. So the Yoga Sutras have 4 padas, P-A-D-A. A pada means a book. It actually means foot. But it's broken up into 4 books. And the first book is about what is yoga, the theory of yoga.
Cool.
That's the first book.
Lays the groundwork.
Yes. It's mainly what is yoga. So the whole first book talks about, well, yoga is this. It defines yoga. We'll talk about that in another episode. But for now, just creating content and structure for the container. The first book explains what is yoga. Now you can read about it and discuss it, interpret it. What does yoga mean to you? If the word yoga and what it means isn't relevant or relatable to you, you will not do it. So neurologically, for us to feel safe with something and for us to want to dive in to something, we have to relate to it. So I suggest to all of you listening, if you practice yoga or think you practice yoga, what does yoga even mean to you? Right. What is it? That's what the first book explains. But I'm curious, what does it mean to you listening right now?
Yeah. Email us.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Yes. You can email us at becomeoneliving@gmail.com. That would be lovely to receive emails, to see, to read, to feel what yoga means to you. How does it light you up? There's this pulse inside of us called spanda. This pulsation longs to live. It's a passion, itcha. These are Sanskrit words, but it's this drive to co-create What are you creating with? If you don't know what yoga means to you and you take on my meaning or Dan's meaning or Swami Satchidananda's meaning or some teacher's meaning that sits in front of you, you may not dive in as deeply.
Yes. And just right there in that little piece, it requires so much more than just saying, oh, yoga means this to me. And it's like a word.
Yeah. It's a feeling.
It's a philosophy. It's a feeling.
Yeah.
It's ideas. It's concepts. It's relationships. It's inclusive. There's nothing excluded. It's all of you, all of who you are, all that you've experienced, all that you wish for, all that you long for, all that you've lost, everything that you've experienced, and then some. That's just playing on the surface.
Yes.
It's so rich. I almost feel it's unfortunate that we have to name it something, because that alone to me turns people off.
The name diminishes the potency, and then we try, because of neurologically, my friends, we try to label something and put it in a category of familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
That makes us feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
So the labeling allows the brain neurologically to feel safe, but then it minimizes it to fit into our lens
Mm-hmm.
and minimizes the possibilities of knowing. So the first book, again, explains what yoga is.
Right.
Now, the second book tells you the practices. You have to do this, 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 and this.
Cool.
Okay. Then the third book is the achievements or the benefits of those practices. And let me tell you, my friends, I am living proof of the benefits and the gifts that the practices offer. I would not be sitting here if it wasn't for yoga, the 8 limbs. The 8 limbs we discussed in earlier episodes. So if you're interested in learning about the 8 limbs or hearing our take on them, please listen to our prior podcasts.
Yeah, and if you listen to them and you have a chance to chew on them for a while and you have questions, again, email us. But maybe include in the emails the episode number so that we can readily and easily communicate with you, because we want to invite everybody into the conversation.
Dan is very excited about this.
Yeah.
He wants to engage with you.
Yes.
I love it. That's yoga. Yoga is interaction, engagement, relationship. Now, the fourth book of the Yoga Sutras talks about freedom and liberation, and it's a more cosmic or universal look at it. And this is how I feel about liberation. Liberation to me is being free from my twisted thoughts. Liberation is zooming out and realizing I'm not those things that I think.
Mm-hmm.
Enlightenment to me means I can see clearly enough to know that that's dark or that's twisted or that's a protector or created story.
Yeah.
So I turn the lights on and shine the light on that so that I don't behave from that place of distortion.
Mm-hmm.
So the fourth book says, if you understand what yoga is and you do these practices, you're going to get these benefits. And then with these benefits, you will be free.
I love it. It's amazing. But here's the booby trap, is people hear that last part and they want to just like read something and say, I just read this and oh my God, I think that I'm free, because it's in their head, So I just want to remind everybody, get to practice the rituals, or just pick something and jump in. That's the coolest thing for me looking at you is the journey, and it's one of those cosmic things that I'm not sure like how exactly that you got on your journey, but you have been on it. And that's, to me, what differentiates you from so many people that think they're doing yoga. Is, it's not something that happens overnight. And again, I don't know what it is within you. That's the curious thing to me about, why did you knock on Jyoti's door, and why did you keep pursuing? It's like almost like you kept drilling and drilling and drilling and drilling. There's something that led you to believe. And I know a couple of the things along the way, a couple of your experiences with different yoga teachers that compelled you a little bit more. There was almost like the carrot, and you kept pursuing it because you believed.
When I hear those words, I feel them. And the feeling I get is, and the sense I'm feeling even in this moment, is life or death. And it felt like that to me. It felt life or death. What I was living in that moment felt like I was dying. I was aware consciously that I was in an addiction. I was in survival mode. I was lying. I was manipulating. I was doing anything I could to survive, not to hurt anyone, but rushing around, doing whatever I needed to do to make it through the day. When I would read something or go to a class and I started to feel better, I hung on to that feeling and thought, okay, there's more to this. So then I dove into the body, but I realized the body was limited because I sometimes used my body the way I did my addiction. I just bullied it. I beat it up, jump back, jump up. I was bound up one time. My legs were with a yoga strap and 2 blocks in between my legs. And my teachers had me drop back 30 times. Now, a drop back, if you don't all know this, is you're standing up and then you just bend backwards and come up, bend back, bend back. I used my body to the point where I broke my spine. I have a spinal injury that gymnasts get. Most gymnasts have from back bending in misalignment or overly. So I used the body to the point of almost abuse and realized, okay, I don't think this is yoga. That's when I went to Jody and said, I need the philosophy. I need meat. I need something to chew on. And the word that we use for chewing is called manana. I need something to take in and just be with. So I would go home and I would read the Yoga Sutras as if it was the Bible to some people, as if there was life in those words. And I believed, and I don't know why. Maybe as our podcast unfolds, it will become clear, like you're saying. There was this seed in me that this language spoke to. Please hear that. This is so important. If what you're doing doesn't speak to you, I have chills all over my body right now. The language of yoga spoke to my soul. This concept of if the stories stop, if I practice this framework that was already created before me, the Yoga Sutras, if I study this and then practice it and embody it, that I may feel peace, was a concept I never could even think of before. I didn't even know what peace felt like. So what drove me was knowing there had to be a better way. And I knew it wasn't only physical, and I knew it was only through food, because I also altered my diet thinking, okay, and stop drinking and stop doing this and that. Yeah. And there was still something missing. I'm like, hello.
Right. There are so many things that we can think that we're controlling, like diet or eliminating something or taking more of something or doing this over and over again or doing strengthening or, just all these things that are there, but tend to be distractions until you go into the to the piece where it starts to get the mental and the body dance between the two.
Yeah. Having the Yoga Sutras as a hand guide, as a handbook and a guide to keep going back to. I even share this with my students now. It's for remembrance. We have to remember because our mind is designed to forget. What does that mean? It means neurologically, every moment we step into that's new, we are surveying the land. What's this? What's that? Am I safe? Am I not? What's happening? Okay. In that moment, we forget that we're okay. We forget that I just came from yoga class. Now I'm driving home and I'm getting cut off and I got, oh my God, I'm clenching the wheel, my teeth. We forget. We need micro rememberers. I just made that word up.
Micro rememberers.
Yes. We need micro reminders.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we need to microdose on.
Right.
To bring us back. Hey, I'm safe in this moment. Hey, here I am.
Yeah. A micro reminders would be so much better than all these other things because all the other things don't, they take you away. They take you out of the matter at hand.
They alter this state.
Yeah.
And when our state is altered, then we alter. But what about the times we can't be in an altered state? I joke with people, and I'm going to share this to you. If I'm having a confrontation with someone, I can't just whip out tree pose. Hey, hang on for a second. Or sit and meditate. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. God help me. We need to make the Yoga Sutras applicable. Yeah. We have to be able to apply these in our life, but we can't do that, my friends. Please, please hear this. You cannot apply something that you haven't practiced. You have to practice these. After you practice them, then the application, I know this sounds weird, you start to refine it after you practice it. Make it sloppy. Just do it. Just do it. Then you start to refine it and it becomes more your size. It fits you. It works for you because this journey that Dan said, this Yoga Sutras, these are a journey. It looks different for everyone. But I will tell you what the thread is. The sutra that goes through all of us is a longing to know oneself. Our soul, our potential longs to know itself. That's in everyone. How you get to you, my friends, that's your choice. But yoga is a way. Yoga is a way to you, through these practices, though. You can't think yoga.
Yeah, the really powerful and at the same time sweet thing again that I witness with you and your teacher trainees, for instance, is through the course of training. It's almost like if you've got someone who's got a lot of edges, whether it's a triangle, or a rectangle, it's almost like you see the edges start to soften, more flows start to happen, and the resistance start to calm down, and literally a transformation that happens. And it is almost as if one day in one of your trainings we'll be able to schedule when the breakdowns happen. The rituals and the practice over and over again, we witness it. I witness it in Jody's students that it's literally a blossoming into themselves. But it comes at a little bit of a cost. There's change, there's commitment, there's resistance, there's kicking and screaming sometimes, there's
blame, there's anger.
Yeah.
There's so much emotions in my trainings that people are not used to me saying, express that. Tell me how you feel. That's when the breakthroughs start happening when I say, how do you feel? Tell me. and we are able to start to express and share what is rising in the moment. That's yoga. If we can't practice skillfully or practice sharing our feelings unskillfully, we're not going to be able to refine that. Stay with me, my friends, because it may seem that we're off a little, but this is what yoga is about. If you don't understand your psychology, if you don't understand your emotions, which are energy in motion, if you don't understand your energy, your psychology, you cannot be there for someone else. You cannot hold space for someone else's psychology and energy. So this practice, as deep as you want to go in the Yoga Sutras with these practices and rituals, that's how deep you can hold space for others. So I offer you that contemplation. Are you ready? Are you willing to step into this journey of yoga, which starts with the Yoga Sutras, and do the practices that they tell you to do, that is written before you, without changing it, without altering it, without adding music and creativity, because there has to be a point of silence and stillness eventually at some time to hear what has been pushed down so deeply inside you so that you could just function daily. Are you ready? Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
So the Yoga Sutras are a framework. They will hold you if you allow them to. They talk about what is yoga, how to gain this yogic state, this yoga lifestyle through the practices, what are the benefits you'll receive from the practices, and lastly, the freedom and liberation and the connection to your fullest potential.
It's
Dan just gave me a thumbs up, y'all. And
yeah,
we'll start.
Go ahead.
We're going to start to wrap this episode up.
Bummer.
Well,
It's just like you lit the match.
oh.
Yeah.
Would you like to share before we do? Do you feel?
I would just say this. If this is speaking to you, the very first thing I would recommend as a requirement is simply this. Approach this with an open mind.
My husband, Dan Boysitz. Open heart, open mind. That's how this man lives. It's so beautiful to watch. Thank you. And thank you all for listening.
Yes.
Become One Living. You could follow us at Become One Living on Instagram. And you can email us at becomeoneliving@gmail.com. Comments, suggestions, just maybe to introduce yourself and say hi so we get to know you. Thank you for listening to Ancient Tools for Modern Living.
Beautiful.